Money, power, control, compliance, corruption, evil, it all goes hand in hand. And when you get too much money in the hands of an evil or corrupt entity or person, things can get really out of hand very quickly. There is an interesting story coming out of France right now involving Vincent Bolloré and a media guy turned candidate who this billionaire is funding. Philippe Argillier has appeared on this program previously. He is claiming to be in possession of data banks that expose a shadow government. He says that threats are imminent right now, that American citizens and global citizens are in immediate danger, and he joins us now to talk about this. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much, Stu, for having me again on your show. Indeed, I am confirming at this moment that the dangerous rise of Éric Zemmour, funded by Éric Bolloré in France, and I'm going to tell you why, and why it is also directly linked to the American citizen, to the safety of the American citizen, particularly abroad, citizens traveling abroad. First, you need to know that Vincent Bolloré, for the people who are not familiar with him, is a French billionaire who's been in business for over 30 years in Africa. I know Africa quite well as a consultant of government. At the same time, I can confirm that Bolloré literally owns the continent of Africa. I would say he has control over more than 30 harbors, some airports. He has very close tie and relationship with some African president, highly controversial figure. Vincent Bolloré knew 7 years ago, when I left my work as consultant, that I was heading to actually build RDH and humanrightsunity.com and take ownership of the 4 data banks, knew that at one point he had to leave the continent of Africa. That was started in 2015. You know, and I announced that on your show, that I had a meeting with the representative of the shadow government in Cap d'Aille, the south of France, on October 3rd, 2021. And Vincent Bolloré, 12 days after, even though he had put together his way out of Africa, announced his intention to leave all activities in the continent of Africa. That was quite predictable. The downside of this is I have to say that Vincent Bolloré also owned the media in France, literally owned the media via 2 groups. One, he owns a very large stake. The group's name is called Vivendi, and he's going to take control of another one, very well known. It's called Lagardère.
So similar to here in the United States, how our media outlets, our mainstream media, CBS, ABC, NBC, Fox, all of these people are funded by the same group of people. We're talking about a similar arrangement in France. And Vincent Bolloré owns, quite literally, the media in that country.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And it's directly linked to the shadow government. And that's exactly what I'm doing here, eradicating the shadow government, thus eradicating the control of those main media. So yes, too. And what he's doing at this moment, because obviously his stake in Africa is in the billions of euros, I can name 2 companies who are already quite interested in purchasing his stake. One of them is one from Dubai. It is referred as DP World. And another one, very well known, actually is, I would say, is Bolloré's worst enemy, but very present on the continent of Africa. It is owned by the Chinese government. And this company is called CMG, standing for Chinese Merchants Group. They're actually the one who financed what we refer to in France as la route de la soie, which means the roads of silk. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but Chinese, for the past few years, have paid quite a few countries to expand their structures in order to take the goods from China to Europe and other countries, and vice versa. So CMG is a very powerful group, have means of similar to the Chinese government. It is actually the Chinese government. So very likely what's going to happen is that Bolloré is going to sell his stake to one of the 2. I would say CMG might be the one in line. and the money is going to get, his intention is to get even a higher stake in Vivendi, which he already has. He owns close to 30% stake, and take control over Lagardère.
I want to just stress for a second how important this is, because as you know, and as we are learning, and as Americans are learning, and global citizens more broadly, that the media is solely responsible for a decades-long propaganda mission. This is what has been able to lull global citizens to sleep and allow global communism to thrive. This has been a brainwashing mission, and it has become very successful. Here in the United States and around the world, actually, Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey could probably prop up anybody and actually get them elected president. That is how powerful media and social media is. So for one entity, or more dangerous, one person to have that kind of stake, that's what we're talking about here. And that's really dangerous.
Actually, it is criminal. It's even more than dangerous. It is criminal. And you are absolutely right, Stu. And that's what I am here to warn at this moment, the French citizen as well as the American citizens. To begin with, this control of the media must be eradicated. And I will do, I repeat, I will do whatever it takes to do so. And I have the elements for it. Actually, Vincent Bolloré is responding to the action of the data banks. As you remember, I purchased the last 3 data banks on September 30th, 2021. So this is a mission that is actually linked directly to the safety of human beings. We no longer speak about politics or economic. This is directly a question of life and death. And I'm actually saying this in the most peaceful way that I can, even though it is war, big time war. And I want to say something, and then I will go on Eric Zemmour, that is actually the candidate that Bolloré has been financing in France out of nowhere, and I'll tell you why. Bolloré has literally took in hostage numerous French journalists. And when I say this, his method is absolutely criminal. Anyone, people like you two, who would have dared saying or talking or writing anything about Bolloré was sued immediately. There was no way in the world any journalist, even with the help of their redaction or their management, could face Bolloré's lawsuit, because Bolloré's basically do control everybody. And as a metaphor, and that's, I rarely have done this. I'm going to show you 2 things. Bolloré has taken the hands of journalists and literally handcuffed them in order for them not to be able to write anymore. And Bolloré has put a tape on their mouth, not to be able to say anything about his activities. And this is no longer possible. And Vincent Bolloré, and I'm sure you're going to hear this message, and I don't care whatever you're going to do. You want to attack me in defamation, I welcome you to do so. But I'm going to tell you one thing, Mr. Bolloré, your time is running out. You cannot any longer have control over the people like you do. You cannot any longer threaten the lives of French people at this moment via financing Eric Zemmour. So I want you to double think about the next step you'll be taken, because I am not a journalist. I am Philippe Argillier. I own the 4 data banks in the world. I may have more means than you do, and Mr. Bolloré. So at this moment, I would say think twice about your next move, particularly when it comes to the safety of the people of the world. And that's the next where I want to take this to, is what Bolloré has been doing with this man called Eric Zemmour. Eric Zemmour has been a journalist for the past 30 years, a little peon that has just tried to get on MSM, always speaking about highly controversial subjects, particularly his hatred against the religion of Islam. He's Jewish himself, even though lately he's said a lot of controversial things about Jewish people. So even the Jewish community in France is very confused. But at the same time, Bolloré has financed his presidential campaign, even though he has not yet, Eric Zemmour, announced that he was candidate. But from 8 a.m. to midnight, French people are being fed Eric Zemmour. Bolloré is giving him the most covers of magazines that no president, not even Emmanuel Macron, had at the end of his presidential campaign, even though at the time he had more covers than all French presidents together. Eric Zemmour is being heard on all MSM, all the media that Bolloré owns, all radio stations that he owns, all cover magazine that he owns, and French people are being fed Eric Zemmour on a daily basis by the minute, not even by the hour.
This is very reminiscent of 2008 with Barack Hussein Obama. In this country in particular, you could not escape watching, hearing from, or seeing that man's face leading up to the 2008 election here in the United States of America.
That's exactly what it is. And for the American people who are not familiar with Eric Zemmour, I want them to know that Eric Zemmour has, at this moment, raised the hatred against Islam in my country. And that's a very dangerous topic. As you recall, in 2015 and 2016, we have horrific events where hundreds of people died. Actually, my own daughter almost was ran down by this truck, and from that is only Nice. And that is why and it's really what it is. This is very much even separate from the first interview that I had with you, Stu. This is a very personal message that I'm addressing to Bolloré again and to Eric Zemmour. They are both making my own children at risk, thus making all the other children and adults in France at risk, and also American citizens. Let me tell you why. Because American citizens, for those groups, are directly linked to France. They don't really see any difference between France and the US. What they know is that it's one entity. And that means that somewhere, somehow, by endorsing Eric Zemmour, if France were to be endorsing Eric Zemmour, for these individuals, the US will then be endorsing Eric Zemmour, then putting a high risk all Americans traveling abroad. And I was the first one also on your first show to say that even though I do not have any connection, and I repeat, I do not have any connection whatsoever with any terrorist group. On the other hand, I'm quite clear about the echo that I hear and what they want. This happened in Afghanistan very recently in Kabul with the Taliban, where they wanted the message was more to be recognized as a government. At the same time, we cannot ignore the fact that the religion of Islam altogether range close to 2 billion people on earth, which is a quarter of the world population. So instead of, again, doing something to increase the hatred against those group of people, why don't we, at one point, quote, leave them alone and doing our own business, and at the same time, avoid this high risk of, I would say, terrorist attacks. And if this were to be the case, I would, at this moment, say that Eric Zemmour, if anything were to happen, financed by Vincent Bolloré, would be responsible for it. And I know what I'm saying is quite something, but that's exactly the truth. And besides the fact that Eric Zemmour is against Islam, against gay people, is highly, it's what we refer in France as misogyne. What he says about women, like women are lesser beings. They don't think for themselves. Thank God we don't have women in governments. There are, tons of documentary where he is taking down basically all women, and he hates black. Actually, he had a big problem that in our French soccer team, there were a lot of black people. He said that they had no business to even play on behalf of France. And needless to say, that is Bolloré is financing all this. So we have a high rise of danger coming up at this moment in my country and in your country too, because of Éric Zemmour's action in France, totally financed by Vincent Bolloré.
So Zemmour is a disgusting racist and a misogynistic bigot, is what you're saying.
He is. I confirm that. And he has no business.
And he's poking the bear with all of Islam, and he has this hatred for another religion that has been known for its extremism and has taken very violent steps in the name of a religion, which we know that the religion of Islam does not support as a whole. But these terrorist attacks would be on Zemmour's and Bolloré's backs, on their shoulders. They would be responsible if they occur in the future. Is that what you're saying?
At this moment, I would say so. And you're right, Stu. You said something very important. Let's not confuse the religion of Islam with those groups. It's two separate issues. But
right,
at the same time, we don't have to light the fire under, the oil. It's not necessary. We have to keep in mind that these individuals, when they die in the name of Allah. So they are ready to die. And our soldiers, when they go to war, they want to get back home. Here, what I'm saying is we have no business whatsoever to increase this threat in France and the United States, the risk of terrorist acts.
Yeah, that seems to make perfect sense to me.
Excuse me?
That makes perfect sense to me.
It does. And that's what I'm here. And I'm very troubled. And I wish I could talk about, even though I'm going to have to talk about, even though to me at this moment it's totally irrelevant, the documents of His Holiness the Dalai Lama that I promised to send you and that you did receive, the 12-page. You will see for yourself when the timing is right, when you want to show that to your people, how the shadow government work. It's all there on documents. Even though I don't have at this moment my willingness to talk about this, because it's not at the level of the Bolloré Éric Zemmour topic at this moment. But at the same time, yes, I want your audience to know that I did keep my commitment to you, that you do have the documents. And you can, if at one point, if you want me to come back and explain, but you have the living proof via those documents that indeed the shadow government does exist. So anytime you want to for that one.
Yeah, and just for public acknowledgement, we did receive documentation from Philippe Argelier. I just don't know exactly how to make sense of it, and we will have you back to talk about that prior to release, because I want people to understand how exactly it is to read that and what they're looking at.
That's right. And what I want to do also, back to the subject, and I want all the journalists, and I want all of them to hear me very well. All the journalists that have been censored by Vincent Bolloré, all of you, I insist, all of you, the RDH and humanrightsunity.com, our gate is wide open for you. We will take care of you. We will help you in any way we can to fight whatever Bolloré has done to you. And RDH and Human Rights Unity is your home. So just know that you have full support starting with me. And I want to also acknowledge your bravery, your courage, and your highly professional expertise in wanting to tell the truth and say the full transparency about Bolloré's activities. Because like Stu said, unfortunately, all of our MSM are controlled by the big media, including, and I'm addressing this not to ABCs and whoever they are, ABC in your United States of America. So far, I have not received an invitation to talk about who I am and who, and what I represent. Shame on you by not having me on your network is also putting at risk the citizen of the United States of America. So I made this very clear now through Stu. Do whatever you want. Keep me censored in your country, and we'll see what future will tell no matter what. There is one thing that you cannot take down, and that is data banks. That's my message I can give to all the MSM in America. Because keep in mind, I've been an American citizen. My wife and 2 children are American citizens. So I take America in my heart. So what you are doing at this moment by censoring Philippe Argilier, you are censoring the transparency of all American citizens. And if I may, Stu, before I end, I would like to thank personally all the people the support that I received after your first show from all over the world. We received hundreds of thousands of mails. Unfortunately, I cannot answer to all of them, even though I will try. But I want anyone to know that I read, and I'm trying to read every single letter. And I thank every single one of you by your support. And again, I'm inviting you to join humanrightsunity.com because it's part of who we are as warrior to finally eradicate the shadow governments.
Philippe Argilier, on a Saturday from France. Thank you so much for being here, sir. God bless you.
God bless you too. Thank you.